Hello, my name is Snedden, and I'm here in my little basement studio, and I've been asked to produce a little video about throwing plates on the potter's wheel for the London Clay Arts Centre folks, because we're going to be doing a big fundraising event called the Ultimate Blue Plate Challenge. So there I've got a flat bottom on my lump of clay. This is about 4 pounds of clay to make a dinner size plate. Now if I take and I pack this in, because plates are all bottom, right? So it's really important to compress the clay on the bottom of the plate. So there I've got a point. If I want to get real fancy, I can do something like that, right? And when I throw this down on the wheel, or the bat, this will automatically be compressing some clay. Speaking of which, because a plate is such a low, wide object, we need to put it on a removable throwing surface like a bat. And a lot of wheels, well, most wheels these days have an accommodation for bat pins and the corresponding holes in the bats. I hate those because I've mashed my hands too many times, and quite frankly I was taught differently. I was taught to use a little ball of clay and to create a pad of clay to affix my bat to. So throwing the clay down here, I'll center it on the wheel head by squeezing it up and pushing forward and down. Squeezing it up and pushing forward and down. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take and I'm going to spread this out almost to the size of the bat that I'm going to be using. This is a 12-inch bat, so spread it out, making sure that the outside part is slightly higher than the inside part. And then I'm going to put in these concentric rings . And that, when I take and put my bat on there, I can tap center it in, give it a pound, and nothing is going to pull that off except me. Like, it's not going to lift off the bat pins, is what I mean. So now I'm going to take that, put that on there, push it down a little bit so it sticks, and then squeeze it up and push forward and down. Now when you're using larger pieces of clay, you can center it in sections. So I'll center the top part, and then I'll center the bottom part into that, right? So that's the coning up part. And then when I get to the top, put my thumb across the center of the top. This muscle here rests against the top of the clay, and I just lean forward and let the wheel do the work for the moment. Brace my elbow in against my body and just hold it there. Squeeze it up. And push forward and down. Now obviously, if you're making something low and wide, you should center your clay low and wide. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a wet sponge and I'm going to put it on the back of my hand. And using this part of my hand as a rib, I'm going to push in on the center of the pad of clay. So what that's doing is that's compressing all of those little clay particles so that they end up being nice and strong and you don't get the dreaded S-cracks in the bottom of your plate. So there, and now I'm going to sweep out, and you'll see that this bone here is pushing the clay, and this finger here is going to contain the clay at the edge. So I'm going to push in and sweep out, and if it gets dry I can just squeeze my sponge. Push in, sweep out. Now, of course, clay shrinks as it dries. We all know that. Or hopefully we know that. This clay, mid-smooth stone, shrinks about 14-15%. So if I want to make a standard size dinner plate of 10 1/4 inches, I actually need to make it at 11 1/4 inches, so that by the time it gets through that process of, you know, drying and being fired once, glazed, fired again, it will shrink to an appropriate size so that it will fit in a dishwasher, you know, on the shelf, on a standard 12-inch shelf in a cupboard, right? All those good considerations. So I'm going to push in and sweep out. So you'll notice that I'm leaving, oops, clay doesn't like sudden movements. You'll notice that I'm leaving a good bit of clay at the edge here. So this area here is fatter, right? So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to reach in with my thumb, jam it in underneath, and turn my hand kind of like this. So it's going to claw it up. And I'm going to keep that contained with my damp sponge. So push it in. And then curl it all up. So there you go. I mean, there's a pie plate right there. Pie. And I'm going to give it one pull. But the trick with plates is to leave enough down below here under the rim to support the rim of the plate so it doesn't flop. But before I turn the rim down to make a standard dinner plate, I'm just going to wet trim underneath here because it's a lot easier to do now than to do later. Speaking of pie plates, I use my pie plate all the time. And, you know, just put some handles on the side. It's great for little casseroles for Pauline and I. The cats don't get any. So now I'm just going to run some water down the outside and take the straight edge of my tool. And if you don't have this tool, you should get this tool. This is, or you should make one. It's terrific. You can go right down the outside. It just gathers up the clay. This is a really great straight edge, and this is a really great rib. So, fantastic tool. So, pull that away. Now what I'm going to do is take the straight edge, and I'm going to pull the rim down. You know, my first dinner set did not have foot rings on it. And it was pretty much like this. It was a sort of pasta plate. And the peas just rolled right onto the fork. It was terrific. But eventually it bit the dust. But a real standard traditional dinner plate looks something like this. And then using my thumbs, clean up the edge on the inside rim, and then with my thumb, notice that I'm bracing my hand. I tend not to use ribs on plates. I don't know why, but I just don't. And plates, of course, are the potter's canvas. You know, most of the plates that I do are decorative plates, just because I like painting. It's fun, and using imagery and all that kind of stuff. So I tend to leave a lot of clay on the bottom because I want a nice deep foot ring that I can make accommodation for hanging the plate on the wall. Clean up the rim. Some people use a chamois for that. I just use my, where's my chamois? Where's my chamois? No, I got my hands. They're right here all the time. So I just use my hands. So now my plate is done. You know, you can do all sorts of things with your plate. You can mess around with the rim. You can do whatever you want. But I'm just going to leave it a plain plate. And now, most importantly, don't forget to cut it off of the bat. Because sometimes it comes off, sometimes it doesn't. So I'm going to get in there and make sure that you stretch your wire tight, tight, tight. Because I know that when I go through this, and the wider a piece is, the more that the wire rides up. And so that's another reason why I leave a lot of clay on the bottom of this, is so that even if the wire rides up a little bit, I've still got room for a good solid foot ring. So pull that through. There we go. And now I'll take my trusty tool, take the slurry off the edge of the bat, get in there and wedge this up. And make sure you don't drop it, because you'll mess up that nice rim that you just spent all that time achieving. All right, and there you go. There's a plate. Right? One more thing that you might want to consider as this plate is drying. Sometimes what happens is that the rim will sort of fold up a little bit because it's thinner, right? It's drying out more quickly than the interior, right? So sometimes what people will do is take a piece of plastic or a piece of plastic with a hole in it and drape it around on the rim so that the rim dries more slowly. I've never really had too much trouble with it. You certainly want to dry your piece after you trim it, and we'll come back and we'll talk about trimming. After trimming, you want to dry this upside down on a flat surface as much as possible. Don't let the edge hang over, say a board or something like that, because that is kind of disastrous for the rim. What else? Yeah, so get busy, make some plates, right? And remember to put something blue on it.